Imagine you're incarcerated in a mental health ward in the early 1960s. You have an urge to do something that the wardens and the head nurse would punish. Say, escape and take your fellow patients on a fishing day. You know that this action will be punished. The punishment will be severe. Is it better to fall in line with the rules or live a little? To hell with the consequences. This familiar question is central to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, a 1962 Ken Kesey novel adapted and changed quite a bit into a 1975 film by Milos Forman. Kesey, before he was an author, did the graveyard shift in a mental health facility in California in the 1950s. He saw firsthand what it was like in these places. He was in his mid-20s, sure, but he was also young of mind, acknowledging the importance of individual liberty over social conformity. He witnessed the way the minds of the people he watched over were controlled by a healthcare system that was on the brink of radical change. The civil rights movement was gaining momentum, and it wasn't just Black Americans who stood to gain agency from the systemic changes it demanded. There was also a push for deinstitutionalization, where long-stay psychiatric hospitals were replaced by more welcoming settings for therapy, including clinics, group homes, and indeed from the patient's home. It sounds second nature to us in the year 2025, but deinstitutionalization was controversial at the time. Consider this. You had a group of people who didn't fit neatly into the boxes we must all fit into in a society. The various wars had created trauma, capitalism made life difficult, race and gender politics made life difficult for many people, and some people were born with intellectual disabilities, or acquired them through injury, addiction, or illness. You also had a group of people who held the balance of power, and through invasive and abusive methods had learned a way to hide these people away from the rest of society, and had learned a way to continuously control these people. Those with the balance of power were not likely to give it up without a fight. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest represents that fight for the rights of people who are submissive in the face of power, who submit themselves voluntarily to the whims of the system, submit themselves voluntarily to be controlled. They needed a hero, and they found an unlikely one in the roguish R.P. McMurphy, who flicks a switch in his fellow patients when he says, "But I tried, didn't I? God damn it, at least I did that." I can report with some authority that mental health support and disability support has changed dramatically in the following half a dozen decades, but there are, to our shame, still remnants of institutional thinking in those industries. People still find ways to control the minds and lives of the vulnerable. And isn't that just the most appropriate allegory for society at large? Michel Foucault talks about similar ideas in Discipline and Punish, released the same year as the movie. His book is about how Western societies moved away from public executions to a prison-based system. This form of punishment is certainly less brutal, but it's not for humanitarian reasons. In essence, it's easier to manipulate people through subtlety than it is through brute force. Violent regimes come and go relatively quickly through the history books, but sustained power is earned through subtlety. Most people don't even realize how susceptible they are to being controlled through subtle methods. Heck, the author of the book, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Ken Kesey, unwittingly became part of Project MK-Ultra, an illegal CIA program to develop drugs and procedures to brainwash individuals into forced confessions. A man who at the age of 27 had published a book railing against systems of control was himself a puppet for the CIA without realizing it. Perhaps there is much we can learn from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest about the society we live in 50 years after the film took the world by storm. I'm Nicholson, and this is MovieVersaries.